What if I told you there's an anime out there that has incredible technology, epic battles, and extraordinary monsters? The main character is the most ordinary, average dude ever. For as long as I can remember, I have been a massive Godzilla fan. So when I heard about Kaiju number 8, an epic shonen set in the extraordinary world of kaijus, I was so goddamn hyped. But when I started watching, I was pretty shocked to see that the main character had more in common with my neighbor Bob than with any shonen protagonist I have ever seen. What I didn't see coming is that this completely ordinary dude may have been exactly what made this anime so extraordinary. So I'm going to find out if this average Joe main character actually fits into this crazy story. Kaiju number 8 has all the elements of an amazing shonen, but most importantly, does this insane combination actually work? We know Kafka is a 32-year-old cleaner. He works with a team that disposes of kaiju bodies after the defense force defeats them. At first, this seems fine, until we realize it's pretty rough. After a grueling day at work, Kafka watches a news report celebrating his childhood friend, now famous Mina Ashiro. This disappointing moment triggers a strong memory for Kafka, as he remembers a promise he and Mina made to each other to eradicate the kaiju together, which is exactly the part that doesn't really make sense to me. Kafka is like the most normal dude you can imagine, you know, and he jokes all the time, and he never takes himself too seriously. And I honestly love that about him, but he could never be this epic kaiju fighting hero, right? That's what I thought before the series took a turn that just, you know what? I'm gonna let you see for yourself. One day, a young guy called Reno joins Kafka's team. Noticing Kafka's obvious regret for abandoning his dream, Reno shares some very interesting news with him. The maximum age for recruitment has been raised to 33, giving him one last chance. But soon after receiving these incredible news, they are attacked by a small kaiju. And although they are both saved, they need to be hospitalized. That same evening while they're resting, a tiny kaiju slips through the window and flies into Kafka's mouth, which instantly makes him transform into a humanoid version of a kaiju. In this horrible moment that threatens to ruin his entire life and shatter his final chance to accomplish his dream, Kafka turns, looks at the window, and is terrified of his own reflection. I've seen so many shonen anime start with an ordinary main character just to quickly reveal that, hey, actually, they're not that ordinary. But Kaiju number 8 completely stands out because it does something extreme. It combines this regular dude with the enemy of the series, kaiju. And the reason it works so well is something that we just saw, is that when Kafka turns and looks at the window, he is terrified of his own reflection. Even when he turns into a monster, Kafka is still the same normal, goofy Kafka we know and love. And he's also normal in a way that most of us can relate to. He has failed dreams and he really struggles to understand his place in the world. And to me, the really beautiful thing is that he doesn't see all these shortcomings as something to be ashamed of. And he can even laugh at his own situation and find a good dose of humor in it. He accepts things for what they are and goes from there with a smile. Kaiju number 8 takes the comedy aspect of shonen and puts a unique spin on it in a way that just makes so much sense. And it honestly made me feel so freaking happy, which is something I can't say about many other series. It was a beautiful reminder that you don't always have to obsess about being successful and achieving things, and sometimes it's okay to take a break. And it's even okay to let things go. And you should never, and I repeat myself, you should never feel ashamed about that. Kaiju number 8 shows us that by letting go of our expectations and accepting our situation, we can learn to appreciate both the tough and the good moments in life. I realized that Kaiju number 8 created a hilarious and three-dimensional main character after only a couple of episodes, but a main character is only as good as the anime they're in. So I had to find out if Kaiju number 8 has what it takes to be an excellent shonen. And no, I am not talking about the husbandos and waifus. There's a scene in the exam where Kafka and the other examinees must eliminate as many kaijus as possible. And this is the first time we're seeing our hero in action. Despite knowing he can't kill a single kaiju, Kafka does not lose his cool. He analyzes the situation and understands that the exam isn't merely about the number of kaiju you've killed. Instead, it's about your ability to adapt the tools you have to defeat kaiju. So he decides to help the other participants, significantly enhancing their efforts, even at the cost of getting injured. And thanks to this selfless strategy, he ultimately manages to pass the exam. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that he was the only person to get accepted in the Defense Force for being able to change his perspective and use the tools that are unique to him. But the thing is, this didn't always make for the greatest action sequences because it felt like Kafka wasn't that involved in the fights in the first place. And honestly, sometimes I kind of wanted to follow another character because all Kafka was doing is either helping others or goofing around. But that's when it hit me. We get to this scene where the city is invaded by kaiju, but this time it's not an exam because human lives are actually at stake. And once again, Kafka realizes he just isn't strong enough for combat. Instead, he focuses on analyzing the creatures and telling the team about their weak points. This information completely changes the dynamics of this fight, shifting the Defense Force's position from obvious losers to clear winners. And even though he later transforms, the support and knowledge he provided is ultimately what gets him a promotion within the Defense Force, which elevates him to the same rank as the people he struggled to compete with during the exam. I've seen so many anime where I was really looking forward to see the main character fight, to see all the new techniques and all the new weapons they might use and all the stuff they might have learned. But this is the first time I've really looked forward to fights where I honestly wasn't even sure that the main character would be involved. What I love is that Kafka doesn't need to transform into a kaiju to be powerful or useful. He doesn't need to be a kaiju to be a hero. And to me, what's really awesome about this is that Kafka shows us that true strength doesn't necessarily come from physical strength, but often it can come from knowing what you're actually good with, your own strengths. And that really makes you appreciate these moments where he does actually finally transform, where you get to see more regular action. Kaiju Number 8 has a way to really shift your perspective on what action in anime should look like, because it approaches it completely differently. It reminded me of those pretty tough moments when I realized, oh, damn, I can't do that thing I used to do pretty easily before. Trust me, growing up, I genuinely believed insane stuff like, I'm completely invincible, or I can run as much as I want, or I can eat whatever I want, until I realized, nah. Kaiju Number 8 shows us that, yeah, it can genuinely be super hard to give up on the things we used to be able to do pretty easily. But that doesn't mean we need to stop doing them. It just means we need to find different ways of doing them. And yeah, maybe one day you won't be able to run like you used to, but that doesn't mean you need to stop exercising. Maybe it just means that you need to warm up your knees, and maybe you'll find a different way to exercise that you love even more. And obviously that's the first thing that came to my mind, but it applies to so many other things. This series shows that with time, you don't just expire, you change. The more I watched, the clearer it became that Kaiju Number 8 has all the components of a great shonen. So now, I had to find out one final thing. Did all the pieces of the puzzle come together? Or in other words, did Kaiju Number 8 accomplish what it set out to do with this crazy combination? As we follow Kafka navigating his way through a very challenging world, we encounter a huge variety of characters. And that isn't limited to who they are as individuals, but also the skills they have. Near the end of the first season, there's a scene where Hoshina, the vice captain of Kafka's team, fights one of the most powerful kaiju we've encountered so far. Hoshina, integral to many important events of the story, has remained somewhat mysterious. So this battle is his moment to shine, to showcase his incredible sword fighting techniques. However, as the fight progresses, the kaiju grows stronger and Hoshina's attacks grow weaker. And ultimately, he is completely overwhelmed and needs help if he's going to survive. And I genuinely love that a secondary character was getting the spotlight. But if doing that meant that we were barely going to see Kafka, wasn't that kind of a waste of this really unique character? At this point, I was kind of convinced that Kafka was going to be pretty much useless in this situation, but I did not expect what actually happened. As Hoshina is barely conscious and about to be killed by the kaiju, he remembers a time his father wanted him to give up on joining the Defense Force. And despite knowing he's going to lose, he stands up and continues fighting to protect everyone. And as he continues fighting, we see that throughout his life, many people, including his father, told him to give up. He just didn't have what it takes, except for one person who fully believed in him through thick and thin. And right as Kafka is about to transform to save him, the one person who always had Hoshina's back is there once again to rescue him. I've seen a couple of anime here and there using a main character who isn't a traditional hero, but Kaiju Number 8 stands out as a series that takes this risk, has all the pieces of an incredible shonen, and on top of that, completely understands and nails how these two things work together. Kafka is a main character who from the very beginning cares more about others than about himself. He is a selfless person who contributes to the success of all the characters around him, which is why everyone from the cleaners to his teammates, the captains, they just all have his back. And that's what makes him a completely unique and amazing hero. We don't always get to see him in action, but unlike what you might think, that makes him shine so much more. It creates this beautiful dynamic where every character has their place, and as an audience, we always want to see more of Kafka because he is the glue that perfectly sticks everything together. This series has a way to make you feel like you don't need to compete against other people. Many of us have probably found ourselves feeling jealous of someone else's qualities. Kaiju Number 8 shows us that sometimes appreciating the strengths, efforts, and differences of other people can honestly teach you a lot and generally make you a really fun person to be with. There's a reason everyone loves and supports Kafka despite how normal he is. He completely fits in because he'll always go out of his way to either compliment or appreciate someone, but above all these things, he genuinely always has their back. And as I was approaching the end of the season, I understood that this anime isn't just about hilarious comedy. It isn't just about incredible action either, or even an awesome cast of characters that perfectly complement each other. Of course, this anime has so much of all these things, but Kaiju Number 8 stands out as a shonen that could change what shonen means. Joining the Defense Force isn't what made Kafka a hero, because the second this anime started, he was already a hero. In the first episode, he was a hero when he was a cleaner. And in the 10th episode, he was a hero when he was a humanoid kaiju soldier. This is a story for all those who constantly feel the weight of expectations on their shoulders. Just like Kafka in the beginning of the series, it can be so easy to see someone through a screen and feel like we're not enough. Like what we're doing is worthless and not appreciated. And in a way, I feel like Kaiju Number 8 is saying that you don't have to be some charismatic badass that jumps in front of a car to save a child in order to be a hero. This series shows that selflessness, kindness, and genuinely caring for others, that's all it takes to be a hero. And that can be as easy as cleaning the streets so that the people who walk there and the children who play there feel happy and safe, knowing that they're in a place that is cared for. And that's why regardless of who you are, you can be a hero. Kaiju Number 8 is an anime that completely subverts the trope of the overpowered main character. But I recently watched an amazing anime that actually does the complete opposite.